guys, it's Daniel here. So yeah, I'm kind of cheating again with this one, because I'm using the microphone again instead of being in front of a camera. I know that seems like a bit of a lazy way to do a video, but honestly I think that doing it on the microphone could be a chance to quickly get this review out, because honestly, for a while, I haven't been reviewing many movies that came out in cinemas. I've been mainly reviewing movies nowadays that I feel like either I forgot to talk about in the past, or I feel like are worth talking about. Whether they're good or they're bad or they're decent, I feel like they have something to talk about on this channel, and I think that's what I'm trying to be nowadays, just to be like a bit of a versatile kind of critic, to review stuff that maybe not a lot of people heard of, or I feel like are worth talking about. And this one, after rewatching it last week, I feel like it's definitely worth talking about, even though it seems pretty, like, kiddie-ish to talk about this, but honestly, if you've seen the movie, you'll know that it's not really that big of a kiddie-ish kind of film, because yes, this is a U film, well, rated U, but let me explain. Shaun the Sheep is a famous aardman character that first appeared in 1995 in the Wallace and Gromit short film A Close Shave. I guess his introduction in that short film became so popular that they eventually decided to give him his own franchise, including his own television series for like CBBC that definitely had the same humour that he did in A Close Shave, but also manages to juxtapose it against different characters that he comes across, meets, and is his family, like the farmer, Bitzer the dog, Timmy the lamb, as well as the other sheep on the farm. And apparently that show became so popular that it got its own spin-off series focusing on Timmy, specials, and 2 feature-length movies. Now, many of you know, many years ago, I reviewed the second Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon, back in 2019. However, I thought I'd go back to the beginning and talk about the first ever Shaun the Sheep movie that came out in 2015. So, without further ado, let's talk about Shaun the Sheep, the movie. So the plot of Shaun the Sheep the movie takes place on the farm in the British countryside and follows Shaun the Sheep, a mischievous animal who likes to cause some trouble but also help others with his smart, intelligent personality, but he hasn't really got any schemes at the moment because he's having to deal with the repetitive nature, chores and routines on the farm placed down by his farmer and their sheepdog Bitzer. However, one day he decides to take a day off from these routines by tricking the farmer into falling asleep and putting him in this caravan. However, things start to take a bit of a wrong turn as the caravan then wheels its way down the hill and ends up getting the farmer separated from the farm into the big city. So now, Shaun, the rest of his sheep, and Bitzer must go off into the city to find their farmer and bring him home. However, things aren't going to be as easy as they think, because not only has the farmer received a memory loss from all this madness and believes that he's a celebrity hairdresser, but a mean, rude animal catcher named Trumper is on the hunt for the sheep. So now they must all try to get back together to defeat Trumper, while also realizing how much they really mean to each other as family. So, judging by that story, you may think this might be just a silly comedy, but for a independent comedy animal movie, it actually is more bigger than you think it is, because, of course, this is made by Aardman, one of the greatest British animation studios out there. You know, for films like Wallace and Gromit and The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, the Wallace and Gromit shorts, Chicken Run and Arthur Christmas, one of my favourite Aardman movies. So, what do we all think of this movie? Well, apparently, despite a lot of people not knowing what it was a huge success, it got that standalone sequel in 2019, like I said, and it was even nominated for Best Animated Picture. Yeah, that's right, at the Oscars, one of the biggest worldwide celebrational Academy Award ceremonies for film, had a nomination for Shaun the Sheep. Of course, it lost to Inside Out that year, but I'm just surprised that they managed to give a nomination to this one, because apparently not a lot of people even heard of it when it was announced that it was nominated. So, does it deserve all that praise? I'm not gonna lie, watching this movie not only made me realise how excellent and fantastic this movie is, it made me want to go and revisit some of Shaun the Sheep adventures again. I haven't seen them all, I've watched many episodes of the show, I watched that second movie, but I've not seen any of the specials, but I have watched his introduction in Close Shave, because I love a close shave. But this movie made me realise that I want to go back and check what his life in Aardman was all over again. I know that seems a bit weird to say because this is a film about a sheep going to the city and dressing up in costumes, but let me go into some more detail as to why I think this movie is absolutely awesome and excellent. First of all is the animation style. Yes, this animation style for Aardman isn't as big as some of the other feature-length movies, but in my opinion, I think that really works to the movie's favour, because yes, it's a comedy, but it's also meant to be like a very down-to-earth kind of film, so just the simplicity of the animation definitely works in its favour, but it still manages to feel like a movie, because the city was definitely built mostly from props. I mean, I watched the behind-the-scenes video of this movie, and they definitely did a good job creating all of these different sets, and it must have taken them a long time to try to get every frame right because of it being stop motion, and there's so much going on in the feature-length movie. I question how long it actually took to make this movie, because in my opinion, despite not being as big as some of the other Aardman movies, this animation still looks good as it did in Wallace and Gromit: The Curse and the Were-Rabbit. I mean, you could just see many hairs and fur coming off of the animals' bodies. The design of the humans can be very weird, but also in some cases kind of relatable at the same time. I mean, the farmer's animation, he has no pupils in his eyes, yet you can still see the emotions that he's feeling, even with no eyes. And speaking of that, what I absolutely loved about this film, as well as the Shaun the Sheep franchise in general, is the fact that it has no dialogue. No word is spoken, just constant grunts and gibberish. And I think that works to the movie's favour, because it makes a lot of jokes in the movie seem so funny, because not a single word has to be said. It just results in the characters' movements and constant words of gibberish like or and the sheep and the dogs and the animals mainly make their own noises. You know, sheep's like meh, ma, nah. And the dogs are like ruff, 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 ruff. And yet you can still get the emotions they're trying to feel in the comedic situation, but also dramatic situation, which I will get to later. And the characters and the voice actors that portray them did a fantastic job, because the voice actors don't have to say any words, mainly just expressions of gibberish. For example, we have Shaun the Sheep himself, who I think is a fantastic character. Because of how smart he is, he has very creative ways of making his schemes, and even when a scheme doesn't go that well, he still has a contingency plan of how to make sure it does go well. But at the same time, you really see the development growth in his character throughout the movie, because when he travels into the city and realizes that his schemes go too far, he comes to realize the importance of what he has on the farm with his family and his farmer, and it made him realize the responsibility of being an animal, but also having to take care of other people as well. And I think that this movie did a fantastic job making him grow as a character, and the actor who portrays Shaun is none other than, I'm not gonna lie, one of the greatest children's entertainers / actors and comedians or singers in terms of like his persona on the famous channel CBeebies, Justin Fletcher. Yep, Justin Fletcher is the voice of Shaun. He's been voice of Shaun for a very long time. Fletcher is one of those comedic actors who has the ability to take his slapstick persona and different types of way of movements into the eyes of children to make them laugh, but at the same time, he always makes it funny for even older audiences who like to watch him sometimes, and that is no difference here, because he's not able to say a single word, but it's mainly just his gibberish and grunts and sheep noises like bah, that made me realize that, yeah, he is definitely fit for this role. But not only did he voice Shaun, he also voiced Timmy, the younger sheep of the flock. And he and Shaun have a bit of a brother relationship, because Timmy definitely looks up to Shaun as a big brother of sorts. But I absolutely loved Justin's voice for him, because I had no idea that was Justin. Actually, I did have an idea that was Justin, but it's really hard to tell that it's him because he has such a high-pitched cute little voice that I'm honestly shocked that he was the voice of him. So well done, Justin. You really are a great entertainer for many children around the world. And as many of you know, I actually met him many years ago when I saw him in the Railway Children's Show in London many years ago. And again, I'll put a picture right here. So honestly, I've looked up to him many years of my life as a toddler, and I still appreciate the dedication he puts in his work even to this day. As for the other sheep, while it is kind of hard to tell them apart because they all seem the same kind of sheep characters as they usually do, and it is kind of hard to tell what names they are, I still loved that many of these sheep a lot because they are absolutely hilarious. Like, every joke and every moment that they come across in comedy is comedy gold. I mean, especially whenever they have to dress up and disguise themselves as people to blend in with the city folks. But they also show a true family bond together, because when one person is upset or the other is angry, they're always there to comfort each other no matter what, and you definitely feel the family bond that they share together as a sheep community. The farmer is a very interesting character in this film because, yeah, in the show, he is kind of oblivious to many of the antics that the sheep have to come off, but in this one, he plays a major part in the story because he's now in the city, and the different kind of shenanigans that he gets up to in the city is fantastic because, like I said, when he's going into the caravan and he gets shot into the city, he ends up getting memory loss, amnesia, and actually thinks that he's a famous barber. But at the same time, you can tell that there's still that little bit of remembrance of what he was like as a farmer, because the different haircuts that he gives people are the same ones they use whenever he has to shave or cut the sheep's hair. So I like that kind of little remembrance kind of character, but at the same time you do feel sorry for him because he can't remember anything, but he realizes how important the sheep are when he does get his memory back, and I absolutely love the bond that he shares with the sheep because, again, they really come off as a tight family, and even though he doesn't say a single word, his different grunt noises make him come off as pretty adorable because he almost kind of seems like a version of Wallace, but still having that heart for his farm community as we speak. Bitzer the dog may come off as a bit of a rude dog sometimes because he can say a few things, even though he doesn't say a word, but he can act a bit selfishly sometimes, but it's not for the fact that he's just getting annoyed at everything, because he truly cares about his farmer and will do whatever he says, even though it can lead to him getting a bit hurt or kind of leads to many pratfalls. But even though he and Shaun aren't on the best terms after this little shenanigan, Shaun does realise the error of his ways and comes to accept Bitzer as a protective kind of sheepdog, because sheepdogs are supposed to be very protective of their sheep. So Shaun realises how responsible it is, but Bitzer also comes to realise that some of Shaun's intelligence shenanigans can lead to them getting back together again, and again, as a family. And then we have the villain of the movie, Trumper the Animal Catcher. And I think he is a fantastic aardman villain because you just end up feeling very hateful for this guy because of his approach to animals. Because whenever he captures an animal, he puts warning tape around them where the animal has nowhere to go, and you just feel frightened for them, and he's so harshful and mean, and he treats his animal shelter as a prison, and many times when he's listened to music, it describes the nature of his character, especially when he plays Bad to the Bone, because, well, he is pretty bad to the bone. Although, how can you not think of Megamind when you hear that song in the movie? I think that Trumper is like the High Evolutionary, but he's not as violent as the High Evolutionary, because he's like the High Evolutionary if the High Evolutionary wasn't powerful or had a god complex. But he is kind of similar. They are kind of similar. It's hard to say. And the guy who voices Trumper, I can't remember his name. I'll put his name right here. But I know that he's a famous British comedian, but what I find very interesting is that he actually voiced Tiger the cat in the DreamWorks animated movie Over the Hedge. So I'm like, wow, someone who worked with DreamWorks is in this movie, so wow. I guess there's always connections between actors because they can go from high budget movies to low budget movies, even though a lot of people don't hear about it, so that's why I love acting, because they have a very versatile way of performing their different films, TV shows. But what I absolutely loved about this movie was the writing. The writing in this film is so good because not a single word has to be said, and yet they can still get across the emotions they're trying to speak, because this movie has a perfect mix of comedy and drama, because the comedy is absolutely hilarious. I laughed many times throughout this film, whether it's the sheep's antics or a very dry sense of humour from the humans, even though they don't have to say a single word. But what makes this movie worth talking about in this video, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this movie in this video, is because of the drama. Because this movie goes to some very dark places. Many themes being explored that is very shocking for a G-rated film. Like when you go into the animal shelter of Trumper, you see the poor treatment that the animals are being shown at, because the cat has that little cone and different kinds of, like, little bit of a abused to the animals, and it's just so like, oh, I can't believe they actually showed it for a children's film. The drama mainly comes from the bond that the animals share with the farmer, because even though they're being mean to each other, overall, they're still a family, and when they have to, like, help each other now and again, it leads to many dramatic, emotional moments, and that's when the movie gets very, very sad many times. Like, even when I was younger, I almost cried many times throughout this movie because I remember how dramatic that this movie can be, because this is definitely an emotional rollercoaster kind of film, and it's one of the reasons why I feel like this movie is definitely worth talking about, because yes, it's many people's instincts to act this way, but they can't help it because the farmer doesn't remember the sheep, and it leads to a very, yes, it does lead to a falling out, like at the end of the second act, but it's not from a misunderstanding. Well, it's a little bit of a misunderstanding, but it's a more emotional misunderstanding than some of the other cliche misunderstandings in other films. And again, it's the animation, the lack of words, and the writing that makes these characters feel so much more alive and more than just goofy animals. And that's why I feel like this movie is worth talking about, because this movie is just excellent at handling the dramatic subjects that this movie wants to tackle.
Some of the scenes are very poignant as well, and very little is needed, but just a little tiny gasp and intake of breath, and it just can set the scene.
I guess the last thing that I will say about the movie that I loved was the music, because this movie has many original songs in the soundtrack, like Big City, All I Want Is to Be Home for emotional moments, and of course its theme song, Feels Like Summer. Yes, that song is definitely pretty catchy, and it definitely gets the whole summer atmosphere around you whenever you hear that song, because it just makes you want to get up and have some fun. And I did listen to the soundtrack many times, because I do think the songs are not only catchy, but they add to the different scenes and shows the dramatic moments that this movie wants to tackle again. Overall, guys, Shaun the Sheep the movie is a fantastic animated movie with great comedy, great characters, awesome visuals and animation for an animated stop-motion movie, but again, it's Aardman, and fantastic themes about sticking together as a family, not losing sight of what's important, and realizing that everything will be okay because of the emotional subjects this movie tackles. So yeah, I do have to think about what I thought of when this movie was nominated for Best Animated Picture. I definitely see why it was nominated. This really is an underrated animated gem that deserves way more recognition and praise. Sure, it's not as big as some of their other Aardman movies, but honestly, it's honestly one of my top 5, maybe even top 4 favourite Aardman movies, so I absolutely loved this film, and I would watch it again, and I think that it definitely made me want to look back at some of the other projects with Shaun the Sheep and Aardman, because this film is going to get a 5 out of 5. It's a masterpiece of a movie, and if you've never seen it before, go see it, because it definitely tackles the different themes that many people might feel themselves, especially if they're with themselves, or it's with relationship with their pets or animals on a farm. But anyway, if you have seen this movie, what do you think of it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And what is an animated film that you've seen that definitely tackles many dark themes? Let me know in the comment section below. More videos to come. I hope this video style of doing it on the microphone isn't too distracting. And I'm Daniel, reviewing movies, TV shows, doing videos. Till then, meh, meh, meh. That's kind of sheep language for peace out, man.